Chapter 2. Audrey stood outside the mansion, her heart a lead anchor in her chest. She ran the possible options one more time, desperate for a new solution, but nothing came to mind. Her last $500 had paid for the flight and the rental car, so even if another way had existed before, it was gone now. Her finger trembled as she pressed the ornate gold doorbell. A young woman in a pale pink uniform answered the door. Though her face was unfamiliar, her position was not. Audrey's mother had always insisted on help. "Can I help you?" The woman's even and friendly tone didn't mask the sadness in her eyes. Audrey knew that expression too well. Though she loved her mother, Evelyn's overbearing personality and her obsession with money and status often left those around her feeling drained and empty. "I'm Audrey. Is Evelyn home?" The woman's eyes widened at Audrey's name. Her mother must have informed even the newest help of her wayward daughter, but the woman said nothing, just nodded politely and motioned Audrey to follow her. Audrey stared at the threshold. If she stepped over the line, there would be no turning back, and the anchor on her heart pulled ever tighter. Was this the only way? Audrey hadn't even spoken with her mother yet, and still she felt the imaginary noose tighten around her neck. Her throat dried up, and she closed her eyes to calm the beating of her erratic heart. "Are you all right?" Audrey's eyes flicked open. The young woman stared at her as if she were crazy, which perhaps she was. This was her mother, for goodness sake, not an axe murderer. After another deep breath, Audrey forced her foot into the grand foyer. It was exactly as she remembered it. The wooden floor gleamed a bright amber color, and the white marble columns sparkled as if they had just been cleaned, which, considering Evelyn's hatred of dust and clutter, they probably had been. A glass chandelier sent reflections of rainbows across the room, though they didn't lighten the oppressive mood that filled the room. Over the marble fireplace, a portrait of the family done 10 years ago stared back at her. The sullen girl in the portrait sent shivers down her spine. She had looked so petulant. Getting away from her parents had been good for her. The freedom of the past years had erased the scowl from her face and straightened her shoulders. If only she could have stayed away. "Wait here." The woman pointed to the white leather couch Audrey had once considered spilling grape juice on just to spite her mother. "I'll go get Mrs. McAllister." The family in the picture continued to rain judgment on Audrey as she perched on the edge of the couch, feeling like a schoolgirl waiting to see the principal. She glanced at the car seat on the floor beside her, thankful Caden had fallen asleep before she pulled up to the house. Evelyn wouldn't tolerate his noise well. The clickety-clack of heels on the hardwood floor sent an icy tremor through her body. Audrey drug her eyes from the sleeping infant to the hallway entrance. Her mother, with her brown hair perfectly in place and a string of pearls accenting her immaculate beige suit, stepped into the room. "To what do I owe this pleasure?" she asked. The words sounded polite, but the cool inflection behind them told the real story. Audrey stood, blocking the car seat with her legs. Evelyn hadn't appeared to have noticed it yet. "Please sit, Mother. I need to ask you a question." Evelyn's lips pursed, and her eyebrow arched on her forehead, but she smoothed her skirt and sat in the straight-backed chair across from the couch. "What is it? It must be important. We haven't seen you here in 3 years?" 4. Audrey had come back for Eliana's wedding 4 years ago, but there was no need to point that out. Ignoring the dig, Audrey cleared her throat and proceeded with her rehearsed script. "I know you didn't approve of my going to Hollywood to pursue acting, but I needed to follow my dream. It must have gone well if you're back here." The sarcasm dripped from her mother's voice. "Please, let me finish. LA was amazing, but I made a mistake when I fell for a man who I thought loved me. I ended up pregnant, but he left me." Audrey stepped to the side, clearing the view of Caden's car seat. "I kept Caden, but I couldn't continue working. Evelyn blinked, but remained silent, waiting for the question. Audrey gritted her teeth and took a deep breath. I'm wondering if I can borrow money to hire childcare until I get back on my feet? Let me get this straight, Evelyn began once Audrey finished. You've been gone for nearly 10 years, and now you're only here because you need money? Audrey swallowed the irritation threatening to bubble over and answered through clenched teeth. I wouldn't be here at all if it weren't for Caden, but I've had no jobs the last few months, and therefore no money to pay for help. So yes, I am asking for money. No, Evelyn said, folding her hands on her lap. No? Audrey narrowed her eyes, sure she heard her mother wrong. That's right, no. You were given money, which you squandered when you ran away to Hollywood. I was there for 10 years. Evelyn held up her hand, cutting off Audrey's protest. If I give you the money, you learn nothing. But I can't have that baby going hungry either. So here's what I'm offering. I will give you enough to get a place, as I'm assuming you would not accept my offer to live here. But then you will work for your father. Audrey's head shook before Evelyn had finished. Mother, no, I can find a job. Her father owned a development company, and Audrey knew nothing about it. Her passion had always been the stage. It's my money, so I get to set the conditions. Take it or leave it. Evelyn stared evenly at Audrey. There were no options. Audrey needed the money, and maybe working for her father wouldn't be too bad for a short time. Once she saved up enough money, she could always find something else. Fine, Mother. Is there anything else? She didn't want to ask, but she feared a secret condition could come back to bite her. You have dinner here once a month. Audrey bit the inside of her lip and closed her eyes. Once a month. She could handle once a month. Fine, Mother, she said, opening her eyes. You win. Very well. Julie? The blonde woman reappeared in the entryway. Yes, ma'am? Get me my purse. Julie nodded and hurried away. I expect to see you at dinner next Friday, her mother said as Julie returned with her purse. Evelyn pulled out her pocketbook, and after rifling through it for cash, which she handed to Audrey, she filled out a check, tearing it from the register with an exaggerated slowness. I assume you don't have a bank account here yet, so the cash is to help get that started. The check should cover your first month's rent, deposit, and household necessities. Audrey mumbled a quiet thank you as she took the money. It felt like dirty blood money in her hand, but she had no other choice. We'll give you the rest of the week to get settled, but your father will expect you to work at 8 a.m. Monday morning. Yes, Mother. Evelyn had never been a hugger, but she tilted her left cheek up in expectance of her obligatory kiss. Audrey planted a quick one, her lips stinging as if she had just made a deal with the devil. The money burned in her pocket as she gathered up Caden's car seat and headed back to her car.